The Entrepreneur's Library, episode 73.
Welcome to the Entrepreneur's Library, the only book-centric podcast that reviews all the top-selling business books and shares authors' perspective firsthand. This is your resource to finding the next great book that will enable you to grow personally and professionally. Welcome your host, Wade Danielson.
Welcome back to the Entrepreneur's Library. Today we have Gabriel Aluisy, author of Moving Targets, Creating Engaging Brands in an On-Demand World. Welcome, Gabriel, and thank you for joining us on the Entrepreneur's Library.
Hey, thanks for having me, Wade.
Absolutely. Will you take just a moment to introduce yourself and tell us just a little bit about you personally?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I design and develop marketing campaigns for country clubs, yacht clubs, and luxury lifestyle brands. I have a company, it's called Shea Creative here in Tampa, and we're a trusted local partner of some of the nation's largest country club networks. We service their Tampa Bay clubs and others around the country with award-winning design and our targeted marketing strategies. You might have even driven past billboards we've designed, flipped through magazines, or surfed websites for some of the spas, gyms, and clubs we represent. And I wrote a book, it's called Moving Targets, and it's about branding in our modern world.
So you deal a lot with golf clubs then as well?
A lot of golf and country clubs, exactly.
Oh, excellent. Yep. Okay, very good. Well, thank you for sharing that. Now let's jump right into that book that you just mentioned, Moving Targets, which was made available for purchase not that long ago, actually September 1st, 2014. And Gabriel, we're going to move quickly, but we're going to cover the top questions that our reader/listener wants to get answered here today. And the first one is, what was the inspiration behind writing Moving Targets?
That's a great question, Wade. First of all, I think it was inspired by some of the great brand experiences I've had, like Disney, Mercedes-Benz, MailChimp, and even some of the local brands here in Tampa that I come across. And at the flip side of that is it's inspired by the horrible brand experiences I've had. So I'd say it's a combination of the two. I'm also really inspired by the shift that's taken place. And just in the last few years, we've developed this very on-demand society. We have a give it to me now mentality. And we've begun to shut others out more with smartphones and all the technological developments we've had. We've created this very impersonal world. So I wanted to do my part to actually, show entrepreneurs how they can change that, how we can get past that cultural psyche and actually shift the brand culture to gain more loyal customers and followers for the brand. And the book itself, Moving Targets, is actually a double entendre. So it's a combination of people are moving fast. It's an on-demand, fast-paced world where people are moving at an incredible pace. So how do you actually capture that target? How do you catch them? But it's also how do you move them emotionally? So there's two sides to that coin.
So I think you already moved into, or I saw a couple of different things that were starting to differentiate your book. But that's really my next question is, this reader/listener that's, there might be 150 books on entrepreneurship. There might be, 20, 30 a month that come out on branding. I'm not sure if there's that many, but there's so much content and information that's coming out. What makes your book different from others regarding the same topic?
Yeah, I think there's a few things. First of all, obviously it's current. Like you said, it just came out on September 1st. So if you've read books, and there's some great ones from the 80s, 90s, even early 2000s, the world was just a different place than it is today. There was such a shift in the last few years. So that's definitely the first reason. My book takes a conceptual, broad approach, but it also offers you some really simple action steps that anyone can implement in their business and start getting immediate results. And I've geared this for the entrepreneur and marketing executive. The other thing I'd say is I wrote the book so you could kind of pick it up anywhere. It's not something you have to read from cover to cover. I wanted you to be on a plane and just be able to turn to a chapter or at your bedside, read something and get something out of it. That being said, I think it's a great read from front to back, but I don't think it necessarily needs to be done that way. And lastly, I interviewed some amazing experts. There's some stories in this book which make it worth buying or reading just for that fact. I interviewed these guys called Live Intent up in New York City, and they're changing the way targeted email marketing is happening. I interviewed Joey Redner, the founder of Cigar City Brewery here in Tampa, who really helped create the craft beer industry that's booming. And I also interviewed the co-founder of College Hunks Hauling Junks, who took a college business and turned it into a multi-million-dollar franchise. So I'd say just those stories alone are worth reading. But also, because I'm a graphic designer, I think I'm giving you a sort of behind-the-scenes look into how brands are developed. It might be different than you get from your marketing gurus or website ninjas. It's really an inside the trenches approach to branding.
So, Gabriel, you already answered this next question, which was really just how would you suggest the reader engage with your book? And you were basically saying that someone can go in and cherry pick the information.
Right.
And I think that's really not that there's not a place for the book that you need to start and finish, but I think in this time that we're in, where there's so much content out there, through 90 million different mediums, TV, radio, podcasts, books, blogs, all this different kind of stuff, that I think that writing a book the way you're talking about how someone can jump in and jump out, I think that that's going to become somewhat of a norm as far as I think our attention spans are getting a little bit smaller.
Absolutely.
And
The book goes into that. Exactly.
yeah, and the time that we have to consume information might be a little bit different. So instead of, I know that I used to look at it, okay, I've got to invest a lot of time into, this book that's 400 pages, when really now it's more, I need to go in, look at these chapters, see what I need at this moment right now that's going to help me move my businesses forward, and then jump in and jump back out. And so I think that's a great way of writing a book, one that's really designed to jump in and jump out. But
Absolutely.
Gabriel, now that we know the background behind the book, the inspiration and some differentiators, this is my favorite part, and I really just want to hand over the mic and allow you to take us through your book in its entirety. And again, you're talking to this reader / listener right now that might be walking on a treadmill or on his way to work or her way back from work. And so if you can share your book with them, for the next couple minutes, that'd be awesome.
Certainly, absolutely, Wade. So basically, it starts off with an introduction. It's a personal story of how I created my first Gmail account. And Gmail did something incredible, and it's sort of a teaser, which you find out later in the book. What did Gmail do that really changed the way I thought about brands? So I'm going to leave that as a teaser to explore if you do pick up the book. But it starts off really with chapter 1 it's called On Demand All the Time. It goes into what I mentioned before, that we're living in this on-demand, fast-paced society where consumers are consuming media, like you said, at an exponentially increasing pace. So how can your brand keep up and serve that need? It also, again, talks about the lack of a personal environment that we have. There's less and less conversations and more people staring down at their smartphones. And how do you cut through all the clutter and the marketing messages and actually get a result for your brand? It moves on really to my favorite part of the book, where we talk about internal core values. Why does a company like Google have a set of core values on their website that all their employees subscribe to? There's a reason that these companies do that, and it's building the brand experience for the consumer, and you learn that inside this book. I also interviewed some psychologists on how does a brand actually create an emotional connection with a consumer of their product or service. And I think there's some amazing insights on how you do that. Next, we talk about competing on value, not on price. How do you actually create those brand value assets? How do you start a conversation with your customer? Because again, it's an impersonal world. I wanted to give some real life examples and advice on how you actually create a conversation. That's what people are looking for these days in a pretty impersonal world that we live in. And we talk about speaking your customer's language. That really gets into niching your brand. And the brands that I've seen succeed are the ones that really focus their message to a specific person. So they don't talk to everyone, they talk to somebody, and they use that language very specifically. They choose their words carefully to speak to somebody in particular, not just everyone as a mass market. So we talk about that. And like I mentioned, I have a design background, so I actually get into some really specific things that you as an entrepreneur or someone who's working in the marketing department of a small to medium size, even up to a larger business, can take and see what you're doing from your advertisements, your logos, and your collateral marketing materials, and how you can take that to the next level. So there's some really specific advice in there. We talk about gamification. I actually interviewed a guy who created a brand where they use college kids to promote other brands via social media. The company is called Sumpto. They're also up there in New York. And we talk about gamification and how companies can use gamification to build more loyal customers and to actually also engage their staff. Because this book really isn't just about getting customers. It's also how do you build that company culture? How do you act? That's really what is all encompassing about a brand, is the right down to the person that does the most menial job at your company is just as important as the president or CEO. And because whoever's going to touch the client, it needs to be on the brand message. We talk about at the end, a really specific set of grading. How do you know if your brand's actually performing at its peak? Well, I give you some really specific, simple, easy to go through. I call it a report card, where people can really take an outside perspective of their brand and see if they're doing the right things. And that's the long and short of it, Wade.
Excellent. Sounds like there's some phenomenal content that you just went over, and I'm asking you, I guess, to even magnify it even more. And that's that if the reader could only take one concept, principle, or action out of everything you just said, basically your entire book, what would you personally want that to be?
Yeah, I can sum it up in 2 words. It's get personal. So entrepreneurs and marketing professionals have to understand that buying decisions don't take place in the logical side of the brain anymore these days. Purchases are made from the emotional side. So in today's world, people buy because of the connection they feel to the brand. So it's getting that personal connection, which I think is the biggest takeaway from this book. Think about the last car you bought, Wade. Did you buy it because it had more steel per square inch than its competitor, or did you buy it because you felt good behind the wheel? Your friends would admire it, or it just looked really cool. I'm guessing it's probably the latter, and that's what good branding does these days.
Yeah, and actually the sales guy said, well, why don't you take it home for the weekend?
There you go.
And so, yeah, it was definitely not the steel per square, or what you were talking about per centimeter, but it was definitely the why, I guess, that being able to drive it. So he was. I didn't know that they ever let you do that. So
it's a new thing, I think, but they're doing it right. These are brands that are doing things right. They want your wife to say, "Yeah, this is the car I want to buy. We have to have this." Yep.
Yeah, it's amazing. So do you have a favorite? Well, there's something I wanted to ask to go a little bit deeper into that, and that's that you said get personal. What do you think company-wise, through the different research you've done, what is the best company that has done that with their branding, which is, get personal?
Well, I kind of alluded to a few of them at the beginning. I'd say MailChimp, I think, does a great job. They actually tell a story with their brand. They even give you these quirky videos to watch. MailChimp, if you don't know, is an email marketing platform. It's a free service, but it's also a paid service. And I think they really talk to the customer. Another one would be Taco Bell that I haven't mentioned. If you follow them on Twitter, Taco Bell has an amazing Twitter account where they speak their customers' language. And I think they do a great job at being a personal brand, at least on their Twitter account.
Excellent. Yeah, we use MailChimp and we love it. So we'll be we have some different campaigns for a couple different companies that we own that we'll be using MailChimp for today. So
yep.
Yeah, great product too.
And they really care about the user experience. Mm-hmm. I mean, just down to if you ever sign up for a website and the username's already taken, a lot of times you'll just get that username is taken message pop up. Where MailChimp will say, "Ooh, spooky! There's somebody out there in the world using your name." So it makes it fun and engaging, and that's what people are lacking, I think. And I think it's just a great example of a brand that does it right.
So I think that get personal could be a quote from your book that we could use for the next question. But do you have another favorite quote from your book? And this could be one that you wrote that you felt like would resonate with individuals, or one that you've already heard feedback from your audience. Maybe it's going little snippets or quotes are going out on Twitter. Do you have anything like that?
I do. I put these tweetable things, I call them tweet the deets, inside the book, and I've sort of been following what people are engaging with the most. And it seems like the quote would be, "A good logo can be drawn by an 8-year-old from memory." So if you think about it, Apple, Shell, Target, all the iconic logos we come across, they're really simple images. They're not conceptual or hard to understand. They're super straightforward and to the point. So while that quote is specifically talking about a logo, it truly translates to all aspects of the brand. The idea of simplicity and making your brand easily understandable is something that's uber important in today's world.
Excellent. So the individuals that we try and pull on here, Gabriel, are individuals that write books that will have a huge impact and sometimes even create a paradigm shift for those that read it. And that's our last question, is really, what's a book that you've read? It doesn't have to be on branding or even business in general, but what's a book that you've read that created a paradigm shift or had a huge impact on you?
I allude to it in my book, but that book would be Malcolm Gladwell's Tipping Point. He talks about how ideas turn into epidemics and major trends, and that happens by finding the influencers. In his book, he calls them salesmen, mavens, and connectors. And from a branding perspective, that idea is just dead on. We see that every day at my company and what we do for our clients. The brands who are making an impact in the marketplace aren't marketing to everybody. They're marketing to someone, and it's a very, very specific someone. So that book did an excellent job of giving you an easy-to-follow instruction set on how to find those people and how to make a difference for your brand.
Gabriel, so before we depart, can you recommend the best way for our listeners to get more information on you and your book, Moving Targets?
Absolutely. You can find everything at my personal website, aluisy.com. That's ALUISY.com. And I have a blog there. You can buy the book. You can sort of engage with me, follow me on some of your social media, and see what I'm up to. There's links over to my company if you want to check out the work we do. That's called Shake Creative, and you'll see that on my site. But I'm very specific in my book that you should give one call to action. So my call to action is go to aluisy.com, ALUISY.com.
Perfect. Gabriel, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your book with our audience today.
Wade, it was great to be here, and thank you so much for doing this podcast. I think it's an excellent resource for entrepreneurs out there.
Thanks again for listening in today. If you would like to get your hands on Moving Targets or any of the other resources mentioned by Gabriel, just look at the show notes at the elpodcast.com.
Looking for your next book idea? Head over to the elpodcast.com, where Wade shares his amazing resource, the top 10 business books recommended by over 500 entrepreneurs, with you for free. That's the elpodcast.com. Till the next time, keep it on the EL.